Hi, I'm Brad Warren. This is Beyond the Event, a youth ministry podcast presented by Christ in Youth, where we help you maintain momentum between the mountaintops. We're back. I'm so excited. Okay. Couple things. One, if you don't know already, we're on video. We're on YouTube. So check us out there if you want to watch me be awkward. Or just listen if you're driving. Don't watch if you're driving. That's my advice. Also, today we're starting a little mini series about how to scale for growth. This is for everybody, whether you have 5 people in your ministry and you would like to see it grow to 10, or whether you have 25 and you would like to see it grow to 50, or whether you have 100 and you would like it to see it grow to 500. No matter what, healthy things grow, and we want to have conversations that can hopefully help you begin to think about what it would look like to see that type of growth in your youth ministry. So today we're talking specifically about trips. We'll be talking about it later with a guy named Lemmel. Right now, I'm going to talk to my good friend, Mikey Sackrider.
Hey, Bradley.
Hi, Mikey.
So good to be here.
I'm really thrilled to have you, honestly.
Yeah, great introduction, by the way.
Oh, thank you. That's so sweet. Number one most encouraging person, Mikey Sackrider. That's a real thing.
Wow.
Here's the deal. You just got done with your first full CIY summer.
First one.
Yeah. What do we think? What surprised you? How was it?
Man, I know it's fun. Last time I was on here was before. Obviously, we're getting ready. So now it's like, how is Mikey doing afterwards? That's how it feels.
Like, how are you though?
I am doing great. Okay, thank you. I really am. It was an amazing summer. Honestly, could not have even imagined, what it was going to be like until you do it. And then I did it. And I mean, just looking back, I am still so excited and so proud of our team. I mean, just knowing all the steps that it took to accomplish what we accomplished, and for students to hear the message that they heard. And were there things that we look at and want to do better? Always, right? But looking back, I'm just so thrilled and excited to see what God did and how students heard about rest through Jesus. And getting to be at events, directing a couple, and being an assistant director, getting to connect with some new people, new friends. It was amazing. So could not be more thrilled. But now we're looking into 2025, which is crazy. Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Let's talk about 2025 a little bit, because I know we've brought up several times on this podcast that the move cycle is like an 18-month cycle. So you guys have known what we're going to be talking about in 2025 for a while now. And now that we're through 2024, you get to really put your foot on the gas, lean in, and unpack this new topic, this new theme of in between. Looking at the book of Hebrews.
That's it.
So how did you land on Hebrews? I'm curious about that. Because it is a little bit of a deep cut when you think about like theme for camp.
It's not
like
one,
nobody jumps to Hebrews. You know what I mean?
Yes. So we understand.
Yeah.
Especially as we've been exploring it, and talking about it. It is a kind of unusual book. It really is. It's not really one that we run to first. There's many others that we would usually go to first. But I think really when you think about the context of Hebrews and who it was written towards, and what they were going through, they were kind of on the brink of like, do we quit or do we keep following Christ? Is this really worth it? Really is kind of the question they were asking. And coming off of this past summer, finding rest in Jesus, one of the things that, we know, not only students, but myself, I've been here, where you're following Jesus, you're feeling good about it. You have this mountaintop moment, you see what God can do in your life, you go back home, you grow in Christ. But there's still that moment where you either go through a trial or you kind of just go through the motions and you realize, man, is it worth it? Like, do I keep doing this or do I quit? Do I back off? And I don't know, Hebrews is such a cool stage for us to get to talk about that and say, how do you strengthen your faith? So even when there is that trial, or even when you feel like you've kind of hit a plateau, what is next for you? What does Jesus have in store for you? And what are you going to hold on to? What are you going to hang on to find that endurance? And so one of the cool things is, we have a resource here over at Ozark. His name's Chad Ragsdale. He's awesome. Maybe you know him. He has a lot to say about Hebrews, and we got to meet with him and talk with him. This was early on when we first thought about Hebrews, and just hearing his heart for it and hear him talking about it, it had that theme. And that's how we knew, all right, we're gonna go for it. This is what we need to do. We feel like God's really leading us towards this. And the same thing was true for last summer with the rest. So we feel really good about it. I feel like this is what
I love it.
What God has in store. So
it's definitely like, it feels very different from 2024 to me in a lot of ways. Which, by the way, the program was incredible, and as a friend, not as a coworker.
Thanks, bro.
It really loved it. So to you and all of the many hands that touched that, it was just
a lot of people.
Really, really great. So tell me what you're like. Why does this? If you get up in the morning and you're like, I'm excited to go to work, I'm excited to dig into this Hebrews in between theme. What is it that you're excited about? Like, what's getting you jazzed for 2025?
Oh, man. I think, well, first and foremost, just getting to walk through a book of the Bible is kind of refreshing in and of itself.
Yeah.
Last year being the theme of rest was phenomenal. And getting to walk through Psalm 23, I thought was really, really neat. And getting to see Jesus play that out. But there's something a little refreshing about a difference there where you're just, all right, let's focus on this one book. Let's focus on the audience, unpack the context of it, all that. I think what's really getting me excited about it is I think it's taking on that challenge of it being an unusual book, especially, I'm assuming, for students, and just unpacking it for them and saying, you are in the same boat. Like, you might not realize it, but the people who are reading Hebrews, who this is written for, like, we're all in this boat, and let us explain this to you and let us encourage you in it. One of the themes that we're kind of finding is this theme of like testimony, right? Obviously, of Hebrews 11, probably the most popular section of Hebrews with the Hall of Faith, right?
Yeah.
And just their testimony of legacy and how they followed Christ. And the author is reminding this audience of like, hey, if you are trying to focus on if you want to quit or not, look back at these people who did not quit and look what happened. And I think that's going to really lead us towards some cool moments this summer, maybe even with like adult leaders and just their testimony to Christ. And then a student being able to say, this is my testimony for Christ. And just that theme of testimony, that right now is making me very excited about some of the stuff that we're going to be able to do. And it is a world. I want to say that, like, this whole time we've been thinking about it and praying about it. The in-between is becoming like a place. Like, that sounds weird, but it's like this place.
The upside down.
A little bit. I know, that's funny because I've thought that before. Like, I've had that thought of like, what is the in-between? Like, where is this place? And
it's purgatory. That's what we're preaching about all summer.
Yeah, I thought it was about time.
I'm kidding.
I was actually blown away that we hadn't talked about that yet. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. We're not talking about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, just that idea of the in-between, and it has like a lot of, it's just so rich because you're reaching back to the Old Testament and it's just going to be a really cool place to live. I'm very excited about it.
Yeah.
I'm kind of nerding out a little bit.
That's great. I can tell by listening to you talk about it that you're very passionate about it, which is
very
awesome. Excited. Like it, you wouldn't want the move theme to feel like a chore or something. Right. That's like, man, I feel like we need to talk about this, but it's kind of a slog. Like, the fact that you're so pumped about it makes me pumped about it too.
It is not a slog. Yeah.
And we like, on our last episode 2 weeks ago, we talked to Richie Shilladay, and like this theme, Richie, this theme of like story, really, really kind of rose to the top of that conversation as well.
Yep.
And, the idea that our testimony is kind of all we got.
Yeah.
It's
a big deal. Yeah. I mean, it is a very big deal. You can't mess with someone's personal, experience with what they're going through, what they've been through. Yeah. It really speaks a lot.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well,
awesome.
I cannot wait for 2025. I love CIY summers, and I'm not a programmer. Yeah. So it's always fun for me to.
You should be one for a day. You want to?
I program the podcast.
Oh, you're a podcast programmer.
But I'm not a move programmer.
Yeah.
I'll be a programmer for a day.
Let's do it.
Pick a good day.
Yeah.
All right. But anyway, all that to say, I get to like experience the magic of it being revealed to me, kind of, which is always fun. So I'm excited to get to have that happen with this in between theme. So,
speaking of which, sorry, real quick, I didn't say this about the difference between this summer and last summer. Hopefully, even by the poster that people have seen, there is a difference in just the way that this whole thing feels. It's supposed to kind of be like a breath of fresh air. Maybe not as
which last year
chaotic.
the poster was designed to like create tension.
It was, and then this one is supposed to have a lot of like breath, and it's a little more airy. It was intentional. But it is gonna be different, but in a really cool way. I'm excited.
I love it.
So
for those of you that registered for Mover Mix, we'll have one of those posters on their way to you real soon, I think.
Yeah,
if you don't already have one. So anyway, Mikey, would love to have you answer a couple questions from youth pastors. Time for the mailbag.
Cue the jingle.
That's the closest.
The mail, it never fails. It makes me want to wag my tail. When it comes, I want to wail. Mail!
Can we get like sued for that? Or how does that work?
I don't know.
Okay.
That's a
Do you
good
think
question.
Blue's Clues is going to
He's
sue
coming
us?
for us.
Oh my God.
Steve? Is that his name?
Steve Burns.
Well,
and
it's not Steve anymore.
Well, it's not Steve anymore, but like for the three of us,
It was Steve.
when we were children.
Yes.
It was Steve, yeah.
There's also just like there's a common misconception out there that Steve Burns died.
No, he didn't.
That is not true. In fact,
What
you
if
can
it's one of
follow
those
him.
like Avril Lavigne conspiracy theories where it's like he's dead and they've body doubled him?
Well, except that he is the one that is like telling people I literally didn't die. I don't know why people think that I died, and it's not like a
something
conspiracy thing
that a person who is covering for a dead person would say.
Yeah, I don't know. You can find him on Instagram. His Instagram handle is Steve Burns Alive. Shout out to Steve from Blue's Clues.
Did you make that up? Or is that legit?
No, I follow him on Instagram.
Okay.
Wow.
That's a real thing.
Mailbag.
Anyway, we have a question from Tim Gray.
Donovan's a new one, by the way. Hey, Tim Gray. Sorry. Love that guy.
Tim Gray.
Speaking of Blue's Clues.
Tim has a fun question. If you were going to get a tattoo on your forearm, what would it be and why?
Do you have tattoos?
I have one.
Where's it at?
Bicep.
Yeah.
Yeah. It says "Wake up, O sleeper."
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's biblical.
Oh,
Just so you know.
yeah.
Yeah.
The second part of that question is if you already have one on your forearm, what would you add to it and why?
Oh, I don't have one on my forearm. If I were to get one, oh man, it would be a reference to my kids, my family and my kids. Something very specific to them. I mean, their names have specific meanings. Probably something like that. So Olivia is my daughter. Olive branch, kind of from that. So probably something with that. Owen's like a mighty warrior. So maybe like a sword. I don't know. They could all go together.
Oh yeah, totally.
So something epic. It's not going to happen. But
what
if
is
it did,
Eliana?
Hers is light. So I don't know how
I'm getting an idea in my mind.
Ooh, hey, if you're an artist and you're listening to this, I probably won't get it tattooed, but if I ever did and you want to draw it.
Best artist I know is Mikey Sackrider.
Oh, golly, I'm sorry that I'm your... Wow, that's a low standard. I'll design someone's tattoo.
It's not a low standard. You are very talented.
I appreciate
Mikey
that.
used to be on our design team.
I did. I didn't do hand-drawn stuff, though, but I could figure it out.
You could hack it.
Someone got the With Me wall. If you guys were at Move this summer, one of our event staff, he got that With Me wall, like just the words on his forearm. That was pretty cool. So
yeah,
closest thing I can get to designing someone's tattoo is that right there.
But people do that. People get DIY tattoos all the time.
They do.
I just met a guy who had on his forearm the like sewer.
Oh,
that Matthew
that's a new
Harris
one.
designed.
Yeah, that's a cool
yeah,
one.
it was really cool.
Yeah, he's actually right behind you. Yeah. It's amazing. Or the Year of Contrast. Those were some pretty popular
a
tattoos.
lot of them.
Which, good reason. Those are pretty sick.
They're awesome.
All
Yeah.
right. I love it.
Do you have any tattoos, Michael?
I don't have any tattoos.
I know that.
Actually. Yeah.
What would you get?
He wouldn't.
Actually, no, I've been thinking about it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. This is my public announcement, I guess.
Wow. Now
And
you have to do
also
it.
your private announcement to me. I had no idea.
Yeah, that's true. There's probably 4 people that I've ever talked to about this before now.
Wow.
And now we're just blowing this thing wide open.
Amazing.
I've been thinking about getting a tattoo straight out of Romans 5:8 from the NIV. The whole verse says, "But God displays his own love for us in this, that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us." And I'm thinking about just getting "God displays his own love" as just like text on my arm. I've not decided yet if that's actually what I'm going to do or if I'm even going to follow through at all, but that's what I've been thinking about.
That's awesome.
I love it.
Yeah.
Great verse, by the way.
It's a great verse.
It's a good choice.
It's been extremely formative for me.
Yeah.
Cool.
And has helped me through a whole lot of different things. I like to change out the "while we were still sinners" to "while I was still fill in the blank with anything and still say, Christ died for us.
Mm-hmm.
And that has helped me through a lot of things. The biggest probably being low self-esteem.
Yeah. I love that, dude.
Yeah. You should do it. That's a good tattoo.
I'm telling you, I'm thinking about it.
Okay.
Comic Sans.
I love it.
Yeah. Good idea.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Tim.
Brad, did you answer the question?
No, I do not have a tattoo on my forearm. I have several tattoos. If I were to get a tattoo on my forearm, I would not probably get text of any kind. I think I would get a bird.
Ooh.
Okay.
There's a lot of different kinds, though.
A bird in flight. So I have a couple of like favorite birds.
Okay.
All right. One is a great blue heron. Okay.
Very Florida of
So
you.
very Florida of me.
Mm-hmm.
The other is a sandhill crane.
Also very Florida. I was going to say, dude, the raptor of the South.
Yeah.
That's what that is.
You can see straight through their nostrils when they're looking away from you. It's so weird.
They're pretty crazy.
I hate those things. In like Minnesota, they hunt them. They call them the ribeye of the sky.
Oh.
Yeah.
Florida hasn't figured that out yet.
They're protected in Florida.
There you go.
Yeah.
We did figure it out.
Great blue heron, scissortail flycatcher is one of my favorite birds. Michael took a beautiful picture of a scissortail flycatcher that I would love to have. Can you print that for me?
I can.
Just on his arm.
Mm-hmm.
No. I want a print of that picture.
Yep.
And then also northern cardinal, state bird of Kentucky.
Yeah.
And they're just beautiful. They're striking and lovely.
Yep.
So I don't know.
I'm with you there.
I don't know what I'd do.
Yeah.
Great question, Tim.
We have another question. This one from Gracie Bursack. Gracie was an event staff for Mix for the last couple of years.
For the last couple of years.
Yeah, we're jingling all the way today. This question, I think this is an interesting question. I don't know if I have an answer for this question, but I think it is very thought-provoking.
I am so ready.
What do you know about God now that you didn't when you started this year or semester or before the summer?
Whoa.
What?
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Different than Sandhill Crane conversation, but a good conversation. So let me understand this. What did you not know about God, but now a year later you do? Like, what have you learned about God the last year?
Yeah. I think there can be some flexibility to this question. It's not like it's not like head knowledge, but like what is something that like
you hadn't internalized
or reminder?
Yeah.
Man, that's a beefy question.
It's a beefy question.
I have an answer if you want to think about it for a second.
Yeah, I need some time.
There was a line actually in the Move Director script this summer where we came back out on stage after maybe one of the Michael DeFazio videos or something. I don't remember.
Okay.
But we came back out on stage and the first line in the script that you had written or somebody had written is that God is not impressed by what you can do for him.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm a very big doer. And when things break, like I want to fix them.
Yeah.
And obviously I've known that, I never would have like refuted that statement on an intellectual basis, but something about this summer and the programming and living in that world of rest for 2 months was just really impactful for me.
Mine is similar, meaning that it's with rest, like from the summer. And it's also something that Michael said in his video is walking with Jesus, working at rest. Just that whole concept of working for rest. It seems so backwards.
Yeah.
But when you really start thinking about and digging into it, you're like, yeah, that's exactly what Jesus preached. You have to work at this. You have to establish this walk and rhythm with him, and then you will experience rest because of that. Like it's a result of how you walk with him. And at first it seems so backwards. You're like, wait, work to rest, right? And that's obviously the point that he was making there. But yeah, that all summer I was chewing on that, thinking about it, and I hadn't really before, honestly. So that was a big one for me.
Michael DeFazio,
dude.
Throwing heaters.
Well, and I'll tell you what, man, I mean, kind of behind the scenes, like being a part of that project, he was
a jerk.
He's that's, oh my goodness. If you know Michael, that is like not
the farthest thing.
The nicest. Yeah. No, that's what I was going to say is he's just the real deal. And just the way that the way that he unpacked that was perfect. So,
and he's
super thankful for him.
As smart as he is and as gifted of a communicator as he is, to be that humble is like insane.
Yeah.
It's literally like incomprehensible to me.
Yeah. And if you ever see him,
I was like, if I could talk like that, if I could explain things like that.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
And just for context, maybe it's a little fuzzy for you. He was in the video with the timer at the end. It was black and white. That's Michael DeFazio. We gave him a nickname this summer. You ready for this nickname?
Yep.
The Slim Reaper.
The Slim Reaper.
That's his wrestling name. It's official. So if you see him, please call him that.
Does he know that?
He does.
Okay.
He does know that. Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah. It's great.
All right. Well, thank you, Gracie. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Mikey.
Absolutely.
Let's go. This is going to be a good conversation that we're getting ready to have.
I'm excited. Tyler's awesome.
So we're talking to Tyler Lemmel. He is the next gen operations pastor at Traders Point Christian Church in Indianapolis. So we've talked to Ann Wilson, who's like Tyler's boss, on this podcast before. But getting to talk to Tyler about how they plan for growth when it comes to their trips, specifically, like our context would be Move and Mix, obviously,
right.
But so like they brought 500 people to Move this year. Mikey, most of the people listening to this right now did not bring 500 people.
Right, yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. But it's like so much of these ideas and these principles can be scaled down to almost any level of youth ministry. And like if you're able to even take an idea of one of these things and put it into practice, it's going to make people's lives so much easier.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that'd be a good encouragement as you listen to this is try to find the scalability for you. What does this look like in your context? Because there is so much there. And I think it's just a matter of figuring out how it would work in your context, whether you're taking, 5, 10, 100 or more. So, and getting to see, I did get to see Tyler this summer and just getting to see like how they operated and got to get coffee with him. I mean, it's really impressive. I mean, the intentionality and just to the details and to their leaders, it was very impressive. It was cool getting to see him in action. So,
well then,
to talk to him.
Let's go talk to him.
Let's do it.
Tyler Lemmel, bestie. Welcome.
Hey there.
To be on the event. This is special for me right now. This is a very sweet moment for me because Mikey and Tyler and I all went to Florida Christian College together.
May it never cease.
May it never cease.
Never. Did you plan this?
It did, in fact, cease.
Oh.
It's gone, but we are not.
The spirit of it has not ceased.
That's true. That's true. So anyway, it just makes me happy that all three of us are here together now, all these years later, doing a podcast. Normal stuff. So anyway, Tyler, I looked up some numbers that are kind of wild. This is going to surprise even you. Okay.
I'm sure it will.
So this summer, you guys brought like 500 people to Move. Okay. Mm-hmm. The number of churches that can relate to that experience, you can like count them on your fingers. Okay. It's not a lot of people.
Okay.
Less than 10 years ago, in 2015, do you know how many people Traders Point Christian Church brought to Move?
No. I mean, I vaguely know how many we brought like 6 years ago.
I want you to venture a guess as to how many people you think Traders Point Christian Church brought to Move in 2015.
I don't know, 15.
You're very close. 22 people.
Okay.
22 people. So not a lot of people can relate to the 500, but a lot of people can relate to the 22. You are a literal expert in how to make sure that your trip infrastructure is growing in proportion to the number of people that want to come on your events. So the people want to know. The people want to know,
All of them.
The people want to know, how do we prepare for growth when it comes to our trips? Because you never know. Looking down the pike, you might be bringing 22 people to Move this coming summer, and 10 years from now, you might bring 500. So that is just a wild stat to me. What's the percentage? Can we calculate that real quick? What's the percentage growth on that?
Not really a big math guy, I'll be honest with you.
It's
a lot.
It's like...
Not me.
Hold on.
I feel like Michael's the kind of guy that could do that in his head. You're not? Oh, all right. I took
Yeah.
one.
I believe it is 2,200% growth.
That's
I think
if that's a true thing, that's crazy.
That's wild.
I went to Bible college. We all went to Bible college. No one actually knows the right answer, but we're going with 2,200%, which is insane.
Yeah.
That is an absolutely wild number. So anyway,
That's crazy.
Your first year bringing students to move with Traders Point was in 2019. Let's talk about
my first actual year was 2020, which I don't know if we want to talk about
rest
2020 at all.
Rest in peace and peace. Let's talk
jump
about
over that one.
Yeah, let's skip that guy because nobody did move in 2020, and let's talk about 2021. So that was 4 years ago or whatever, 4 summers ago, we'll say. What do you remember about doing that for the first time? Talk to me about 2021 move.
Okay. Well, I was about to have a baby, so I didn't actually even go.
Amazing.
But I planned the trip, and it was a dark year. I will say 2020 came with its own interesting circumstances, though, because we were able to host mix at and move at our church. Suddenly those summer trips that had been very expensive and just a really small group of really bought in students, all those parameters were just gone because it was at our church. And so it was $50 and it was bring anybody you want to bring. So the numbers increased significantly in 2020. And that was a pretty cool thing for us because a lot of people who had never seen a summer event got to experience it for the first time. And that, I think, launched some momentum with summer camps. Not that I would wish 2020 on anyone, but it did do something.
Yeah, it was a catalyst
for the future
for growth for you guys. Yeah,
exactly. 2021, we were still. Brad, do you know how many people we brought in 2018?
Oh yeah, I got it. I got it on lock. Hold on. You got a riff. Tell a story, Mikey.
Okay.
How was your summer, Mikey? Tell a story.
Oh, it was great. I was going to say, do we want to guess? What do you think it was, Tyler? If you were to take a guess.
I think including adults, it was under 50.
Let's see how close he gets. That's a fun one.
You've got to riff more.
Okay.
More,
no, that's
more
fine.
riffing.
Well, I don't need to keep riffing. I will just keep telling the story and you can provide some context as we go along and look that up. So do you have it? Or are you just saying, okay?
He's
working on it.
61.
61. Okay. Okay. So we took 61 people. And then in 2021, we took
136.
Okay. So those are, more than double. Yep. And we were not prepared for that.
Okay. So wait, let's just lean into that a lot. What does being not prepared for that look like?
So we went to a venue we'd never gone to before, and we just showed up and expected it to be fine. I'm
guessing all of your expectations were met.
I just wouldn't say that it was fine. We brought group leaders and nobody else. We had our youth team. We were actually at Mix and Move the same week. So half of our youth staff was at Mix and half of them were at Move. Can't recommend that.
And you were at neither.
Right. And then we had, me
I think this
on paternity leave.
This version of fine is like the dog who's sitting in the fire drinking coffee saying, this is fine. It's that kind of fine. Yeah.
Yeah. It was that kind of fine. We didn't do really anything outside of just bringing group leaders for those students. And we didn't even have enough. So it was all of our staff was also leading a group except for one person. It was they're the trip leader and then everybody else is there. I don't know where to say the breaking point is, but after 100, you definitely can't do that.
Yeah. I think it's actually lower than that.
I think it's significantly lower than that. Yeah. But one person leading the trip was not enough people to run the trip.
Right.
In fact, one of our staff members who was at Mix, she just jokes that she remembers sitting in the car and calling me and crying on the way to Walmart to buy 2-liter sodas for like skip a meal day. It was like,
We've
she
all
just
been there.
was so overwhelmed, you know? So I would just say like, people are such an important part of the whole thing. And you can't, I mean, it's obviously why we're doing it is for the students that we're taking, but it's like, you can't run a trip that's getting large like that the same way you run a trip for 50 or 60 people. The simplicity of like, I mean, if you take 60 people, it's like, that's an easy group text with your leaders. And it's like, that's done. You kind of need a different plan for how to communicate. You need different rhythms for like meeting with people because you're not all staying necessarily on the same floor next to each other. It's like there's all these things that start to kind of come out as you dig into what a larger trip looks like. And we didn't do any of that. We just like got them registered, got their forms turned in, got them on buses, off they went. That was it.
So I have so many questions I want to ask. How did that come back to bite you? I guess is the first question that I want to ask.
So, if you were a youth pastor during COVID, like you probably saw that students were not doing great.
They were not well.
I mean, if you were a person during COVID, you probably saw that people weren't doing great. So
I was not well.
No, who was well? But students were really, having a hard time. They'd all been pent up in their houses and they had a lot of energy to get out, which came out in some exciting ways. I don't know what else to say there, but there were just a lot of behavior things that were going on. There was a lot of anxiety that we were really unprepared for. There were a lot of like mental health crises going on, I would say. And we'd also done very little to equip our leaders for how to navigate the things that students were facing. So, there's a lot there with that. I mean, students were navigating a lot of mental health stuff, and leaders had just gone through COVID. And like, I don't mean this in any way as like shade toward adults, but younger adults we were finding were very much like wanting to be therapists in those situations. And there were some older adults who were kind of like, you're not a therapist. But they were like really afraid to say, hey, I don't think I'm the right person to talk to about this. Yeah. Or like, I want to help you. So it's 2:00 in the morning and you haven't slept in 3 days, but like, let's just stay up till 6 talking and then we'll just go eat breakfast. It was like, where do I say stop?
Right.
And like, when is that okay? What do boundaries look like? Can you have boundaries with mental health? I just like, don't even know what it's like. You're anxious or you're feeling depressed, but like, does that equal this? How do I have a conversation when you are experiencing suicidal thoughts? Like, what do I do? They were just not prepared. And so that was like, honestly, I took some notes of things I wanted to hit on. It was like, that was one of the big things up front was we came back from that trip and it was like, what are we doing to equip our leaders to navigate the different types of mental health problems that students are facing? Because, on any trip, it's like some students end up experiencing grief because somebody has recently passed away, or like worse, passes away while they're on the trip. Students are just anxious. People are anxious. People are depressed. Thoughts of suicide are just like a normal thing for young people. So one thing that we did then to react to that was we brought in a therapist who helped create like a mental health guide for us for students. She trained our leaders on boundaries and like when it was okay to kind of cut somebody off and, say, why don't you give them a positive next step? Like, why don't you go journal about that? And we'll connect tomorrow and talk, more about that. And
but situationally based.
Yes.
Like, obviously,
it was like,
I only say that because I wouldn't want somebody listening to this to think that you're saying like someone who's about like having suicidal ideations, that you're telling them to go be by themselves and journal. It's like
Correct.
situationally based appropriate responses to certain situations. But
yeah, exactly. And sometimes it's like they've gotten the whole story out and now you've heard it 3 more times. And so she's like, she gave us tools. Like once you start hearing them repeat themselves, like they've said all they're going to really say. And so here's an appropriate way to redirect some of that conversation until the next morning. So she actually wrote a mental health guide for us so that when a student's experiencing a specific kind of mental health situation, there are some journaling prompts specifically to help them work through that. Yeah. And then, the next step is always to follow up the next day. If it's late at night, I mean, we want to give students space to process, but talking is only one way to process kind of what they're going through. And so having a real tool for leaders to use in those moments has been so valuable for our leaders. Right. And it's given them so much more agency in those situations
and confidence, help. I'm sure.
Yes. To
just
work
like you don't have to sit there and
situation.
wonder, like, am I doing the right thing? Is this good? Is this bad? Is this
exactly?
Good? It's like,
yeah,
no,
and
I'm
like
just following right along.
I need to deal with this like urgent situation, and this is when I need to bring in a parent. This is when I should point them to a therapist. And so having a plan for what happens in those situations was just so helpful for our leaders and was majorly missing in 2021.
Right. And the reason I think this is important, first of all, I want to apologize to Mikey really quick. I didn't really prep Mikey for this conversation at all. He's here. He's along for the ride. He's hanging out. No, what I want to do is give you permission to say absolutely anything that pops into your mind at any time. If you want to ask a question, ask a question. If you want to say a thing, say a thing. That's why you're here, because I super value your input.
You're just so good at what you do, Brad.
No, don't say that.
I will.
I value all of your input except for that input.
I don't.
No, I just don't want you to feel like you have to sit there and just, part of the reason Mikey's here, for those listening and watching, is not that long ago, you were also a youth pastor at a growing, thriving church that every year, it's like when it comes to trips, we're adding, it's like, oh my gosh, what do we do with all these kids? But the mental health piece is I think an important thing for people to think about, because it's like if you bring a group of 22 people, to go back to 2015 Trader's Point, it's like you are move and mix, create environments where those types of things can come to the surface intentionally. That's a good thing. But if you have a group of 22, that might happen 0 times or 1 time on a trip. And that might feel like really manageable for like whoever's the youth pastor, whoever's the trained person, to just like step in and kind of be that person. But when you kind of multiply that exponentially as you get larger and larger and larger, and you bring a group of 500 people, and now all of a sudden there's dozens of these conversations happening all over campus at any one given time, that's when things can start to get like really overwhelming and feel really unprepared. So part of the reason I say that is because I can see somebody, you've kind of mentioned that we only brought our staff team and we only brought group leaders.
Yep.
And I can see a youth pastor hearing that and being like, well, who else would I bring? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Absolutely.
By a youth pastor, I mean me.
Yeah.
Like when I was in youth ministry, I would be like, that's the people. Those are the people. That's who you bring.
Well, I mean, 2021, us could not imagine who else we would bring either.
Right.
Clearly.
So how do you like scale for growth by in what personnel you're trying to identify and bring on the trip and that kind of thing?
Absolutely. So, I mean, volunteers that aren't group leaders, what are those categories? Initially, safety was like our big thing. And safety, like at Trader's Point where I work, safety is its own ministry, like part of it's its own department. Yeah. And there's, a safety director, and he oversees volunteers. So he recruited volunteers to come along. That included a medical person. So if you're not bringing somebody who's medically inclined, I just can't recommend that enough, because the number of injuries and also like I don't know how to say this kindly, like fake injuries that happen at camp. It's like there's real injuries on summer trips, and there's also like the I need to have something wrong injuries.
Yeah.
So it's like, could you please wrap my hand 4 times a day?
It's like, well, the guy that broke his foot got a lot of attention, so
Yeah.
Could I get in on that?
Play here.
Yeah. Like, what about a car wheel gone wrong? You know? So just like somebody to help navigate some of that, because it's kind of hard to be a compassionate group leader in those situations sometimes when it's like, okay, you're fake injured, like move on.
Right.
But leaders who, adults who have some more capacity to really just help with the real injuries and the real issues there, but then also
and to like identify what's real and what's fake.
Yes.
Like,
I was like, I don't know. Yeah. It's like, well, there's no swelling, no bruising. Okay.
Yeah.
But
no tears.
Yeah, bringing the safety team has been really great for us. And their support is just so much about helping students. And so I think if you've got a safety or security team at your church and there's people to bring along, I do think sometimes I've seen where churches bring that team and it's like all about security. And that's kind of not really the vibe. There are elements of that, making sure students aren't sneaking out at night. Like that is part of what they do. Yeah. But most of what they're doing is serving students who are, need sunscreen, need a Band-Aid, need their fake hand injury wrapped, or like need to go to the hospital. Like it's them and a youth pastor, who then has the margin to take them, and the group leader is still able to lead their group. So that was huge, bringing the safety team. And then
before we move on from that, I think one thing that's really important, because I think that's one of those positions that kicks in at a much lower tier. Like, honestly, if you're bringing 30 or 40 people to move or mix, it's like having a nurse or an EMT or somebody that, even if it is one of your like small group leaders, maybe you can't afford to foot the bill for one of those people to come along with you. But conversations that we have at Move every single summer are like, hey, listen, the director and the co-director and the EC at this event, we're a bunch of washed up youth pastors. We are not medical professionals. Yeah. Like we can't, they'll come and they'll be like, my kid broke his leg. And I'm like, do you want me to call an ambulance? Like what, and then scale that all the way down to even like needing Band-Aids or ice or things. Like we really, the powers that be would not really want us even distributing those types of things. So like having a nurse who can manage prescriptions and hold on to the first aid kit and help with some of those.
We've got so many students on medication,
right?
Like we just spoke to the mental health thing. It's like so many of them are on medications to help regulate their mood. So many of them are on medication for different, things that they're born with, or, asthma. It's like there's EpiPens. It's like there's so many medications. Like we've made the decision that like we don't want students to have medications in their rooms.
That's probably good. Yeah.
Yep. But like also there was a day when we hadn't written that down not that long ago. It was kind of like, the group leader will handle it's probably fine. It was like very not fine.
Yeah.
So just having a plan for just like bare bones medication and what to do if somebody gets hurt.
And one of the things I love about all that you're talking about with safety team and, someone being there for medication and like a nurse kind of role is all you're doing is you're letting your group leaders really be group leaders, right? You're eliminating all these concerns or anxieties for them that might get in the way of them being a group leader. Hey, just focus on your group and build those relationships. We have people here who can help you. It was awesome. I got to actually hang out with Traders Point this past summer and just seeing how you guys did all that and the people that you brought. And I get like scalability. Not everyone can do that. But however you can do that now, to whatever extent that is, I think it only helps your group leaders really focus in and lean in on their students. So I think it's amazing.
They have so much to do. Right. It's like group leaders are parenting,
right?
And discipling, this group of 10 kids or whatever all week long. It's like they're doing so much already.
Yeah.
What can we do
100%.
to make sure that they can do that well so that we can take care of the other stuff that's just like a pain?
Right. Right. Okay. So you were getting ready to kind of like move on in your list there.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like connected to that. Then this year we brought what we called our ops team, and I wish I'd brought more people, but it was a team of 5 of us for how many people did we bring this year? I don't
500.
know. 500.
498, I think, was your final number. Yeah.
I would recommend more than 1 per 100 people. So whatever that is. But just to help manage the logistics, prior to working at Traders Point, I'd only ever taken a group of like 30 people anywhere. So the number of things that I just thought I could do was very inaccurate, you know?
Yeah.
Like I'd always been, in case of an emergency, I'll just like run to the store, you know, and I'll just go get that thing or go set up that thing, and I can just go grab that and pass that out. That's really hard when your trip gets bigger.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, how do you pass out SALA cards? How do you like make sure that students have what they need for the response moment in the session in the evening? How do you like, what do you do when a student forgot that it was going to be hot and they didn't bring any shorts? You know, like, are you going to make them wear sweatpants all week when it's 100 and there's no air? You know, like, no, you're probably going to go find a way for them to get shorts, but like, that's not easy when you're also taking care of 400 and some other people. And so figuring out like, how do you anticipate, like what I would kind of sum it all up as is anticipating the needs of students and leaders. So like, what kind of volunteers can you bring and things can you make part of your summer trip rhythm to anticipate those needs?
Yeah.
Whether it's like setting up caffeine for your group leaders in the mornings or like having afternoon Celsius. I don't know, you know?
Yeah. And like to Mikey's point, every single one of these things is just a way to like make the group lead. Like everything goes back to the group leader. Like I don't want anybody to hear in this conversation that like that's still the most important role.
Right.
Like the person who's
100%.
there investing in all of this is like existing in this atmosphere around those people in order to uplift them, empower them, and make sure that their job is as easy as it can possibly be, which isn't that easy, right? So, yeah,
it's such a difficult job. And so bringing people along to support that has just been it's been game changing for us, because like now leaders, when a leader finds out that a student only brought jeans because like they can't like they just like don't own shorts because they only own 2 pairs of pants at home, like they can just text somebody and it's handled. You know, they're not like, how do I help this student? Like, do I DoorDash shorts, you know? And that's like, I mean, that's like a real thing that we've dealt with before. It's like, you know, a student literally didn't bring stuff because they couldn't afford it and they didn't have it. How do we take care of them? And group leaders then go to like the ends of the earth trying to solve these problems, and they don't have to. So we've got people that are able to support on the trip, and they've got a note in their phone of things to buy that day at the store. And that's part of their routine, is just they go to the store, they buy stuff, they get it to those group leaders, and that's that. So anticipating some of those needs, it's like caffeine for leaders has been a big thing that, you know, our leaders have appreciated a lot. We realized that we had students that were like, bedtime was really hard. Like it was like, lights are out. It was like, but I'm hungry. I got to go to the convenience store. I'm going down to the vending machine in the basement because I got to have a snack. I'm not going to fall asleep without a snack, you know? So we started like buying bedtime snacks for everybody, which seems so crazy, but it's like, it was like an extra 45 minutes of the evening was just like trying to get everybody to stop going to the vending machine.
Yeah.
So, and we actually take away phones at bedtime. So they turn them into their group leader at bedtime, and they turn in their phone, they get a bedtime snack. So for some students don't care.
It's awesome.
But some are like, yeah, I'll turn in my phone for a snack, you know? So
I would turn in my phone for a snack.
And here's my charger for another snack.
Yeah, you can throw it out the window for snacks.
Yeah.
And then like extra supplies, like I said, it's like the students that forget stuff, we started packing some of that too. So that
like toothbrushes,
toothpaste, deodorant, and sleeping bags, pillows. It's like, we just have a stash of all of that we keep in the dorms now. And so those ops volunteers are able to just go get that anytime a student is like, I don't have this thing.
Yeah.
So it's been a great way to kind of help take care of group leaders in moments where they're probably just, exhausted and ready for bed. It's like nobody ever spills a water bottle on their bed at like 2 p.m. It's like 2 a.m.
Right.
And it's like, why are you awake?
Yeah.
Why is your bed wet? It's like, I need to go to the store to buy a sleeping bag right now.
Oh, man. Yeah. So I think the personnel thing is funny because it's just something that I never would have thought about. But I can even think of stories from when I was a youth pastor, and never, like, we would take, I don't know, 40 or 50 kids to move. Like some of the things you're describing would have been absolute game changers. But I think money is like a hang up for a lot of people.
Sure.
It's like, okay, so we're scaling for growth, which means I probably need to bring a medical professional with me, and maybe I'll bring one additional like right-hand man or woman to help with some of these logistical things. Whatever. It's like, okay, that's $700, $800 just in CIY registration fees.
Right.
I can't find that in my budget. Like, what is your guys' approach to all of that, Ben?
Yeah. I mean, I want to be really honest. It's like the leadership of our church believes in CIY. Okay. So we've asked for a lot more money than we used to ask for. Because students used to, when we were bringing, 22 students or whatever, it was like, we also charged $550 per student. And so
in $2015.
Yeah, it was like, we were charging everything that trip cost. Like Traders Point was not paying a dime for camp, and then as time went on, it was like, yeah, there's a little bit of expense involved with this. And then it was like, yeah, this is expensive, but it's also expensive for students. And like part of our strategy as a youth ministry is going to CIY events. Like we believe that's going to help connect students to the mission of our church and the church, like as much as anything else is going to. So because we identified that CIY is a huge part of our strategy as a ministry, like we went to our leadership and said that, it's very expensive. It's going to cost us a lot. What can we do to bring down the cost for students? Like that was a real conversation we had, what can we do to bring down the cost? So
but like, sometimes it's as simple as asking. It's like, okay, person who manages the budget, can we get some more money for this? And
yeah. And it was like, okay, that's a lot, but I see the plan here. And then we've been really intentional about growing it through marketing and through lowering the cost and how we talk about it as a church. It's like all those things have added up to bigger and bigger events. And like our leadership has continued to buy into what is happening. And like they see students come back, and it's like students are coming back and they're getting baptized. Students are coming back and they start serving and engaging in the life of our church. Students are they're being kingdom workers. It's like they're doing exactly what we all pray and hope will happen. So our leadership is seeing that. And it's like, yeah, that is making the difference that we want to make in the lives of students. So we want to invest in that. And I know that, money is just like a big thing, and it will not be that easy everywhere. So I don't want to, just say it's as easy as asking. Sometimes it is.
Sometimes, sure. But like even being willing to just like be creative. You know,
Yes.
it's like,
Yeah.
I don't know. If you're bringing 100 people to move and you're wanting to bring, you know, one additional leader spot, it's like there are creative ways to figure out how to make that work. Yeah.
And the other thing that I found is like there are some adults who would go on the trip to do that and would pay for themselves.
Yeah.
You know, like,
which is like every, you know, we all want to be able to foot the bill for that, but like that's a huge deal if you can't afford it and you have a doctor in your church who's like, yeah, I'll be the medical professional. I'll go, I'll pay for it. You know, it's like, wow, the Lord provided in that like really unique way.
He absolutely, I think he definitely can, because the kind of person it takes to be an ops person at camp, it's like nothing can be above you, you know, or you can't be above anything else. Everything would be beneath you if you wanted. It's like, no, you're here to wash disgusting feet. So, and like, you know, it's a really hard, kind of gross, stressful week, but the reward is so high, and what you get to create for students is just like incredible. So
yeah, that's one thing I'm curious about. Like the financial piece is obviously one of those parts, but also another component is just recruiting in general. You know, somebody's thinking about like the type of person, or like, is there like an audience that you go to for that medical person or for the safety team? Like, am I going to, you know, the group of retired, you know, folks in my church and asking them to be a part of this? Is it like the safety team in my church? If we have that, am I asking those? Like, so how did you guys start with that? Is it asking parents? Like, what is that process like as you got that started? Like, who did you go to?
Well, so our safety director was the one who did all the recruiting for our safety team.
Gotcha.
I'll tell you that 2 of the people that have come every year since the very beginning are both older, retired men. And they like got conned into it year 1, I think. And they got done with the week and they sent an email, like within 7 days, they'd send an email that said, as soon as you know the dates for next year, let me know so we can plan our vacation.
That's awesome.
That. Yeah.
That's amazing.
That's the good
stuff.
You
know, it's like those 2 guys, and they've come every year.
Yeah.
Right.
Like they're the best. Andy and Reed, they're going to be there next year. Reed then started coming to middle school camp and then also kids camp. So
that's awesome.
It's like, he's here for move. He's here for mix. He's here for kids camp. Like, you know, when you find somebody that realizes how God can use the things that they're good at, like for a kingdom purpose, it's like, that is kingdom work for those guys. So I think that's like what I would say about recruiting is sometimes on the youth pastor end of things, it feels like you're begging somebody to help you, but really what you're doing is you're helping connect somebody's gifts to the opportunity for kingdom work.
Yep.
And it's like, there's tons of people out there that are passionate about discipling students and they're group leaders, and that's great. But like, there's also a lot of people in your church that really don't want to do that. But it's like, they see young people, they see what they've got to contribute, and they also know the gifts that they have. And it's like, yeah, there's probably some like organizational project management guru out there that would like love to come be your ops support for the week, who would just like love nothing more than to check things off a to-do list every day. And there are probably medical professionals at your church that would, you know, like love the opportunity to get to connect like what they do every day with their faith. So that'd be my encouragement, is just like look for people that already do those things and then see what you can do to connect what they're already good at to the kingdom of God.
Kingdom work, some would say.
It's almost like we've heard of this before.
Yeah.
I love it.
That's awesome though.
Yeah. No, that is cool. So we talked about a little bit, I don't know what you said, what you like, why what you just said made me think of this, but it did. We talked a little bit about kind of the Venn diagram between group leaders and some of these support roles, and how like the support roles are designed to kind of move things off of the group leader's plate. in order to like free them up to do the things that they're there to do really, really well. I think there's also like a Venn diagram between you and Anne and some of these support staff and the other members of your staff, and some of these support staff where they can take a few things off of your plate as well, that free you up in some different ways. I'm wondering how that's like benefited you going back to 2021. How was the experience for you in 2021 compared to for you, Tyler Lemmel, in like 2022 and 2023 after you made some of these changes? You didn't go in 21, but you understand what I'm saying.
I didn't go in 21. Well, yeah. So, I mean, even last summer, it's like I was doing, it was me and one other person doing everything. So I think implementing, you know, some of what I have said we like did with like mental health and trips, it's like that was so valuable. This is what you're talking about, right? I mean, it's like all these changes. Or are you talking about people specifically?
Well, no, I think all of the changes, and just like how it's like, I want to know, what I want is for a youth pastor listening to or watching this to see a picture of like, if I were able to make some of these changes scaled to my own context, like it could make my experience better by fill in the blank. You know what I mean?
Like a testimonial.
Yeah. A little before and after.
Great. So with mental health stuff, like all of a sudden leaders and students got so much more sleep. That was like game changing. People are rested, which like more sleep.
It's a big deal.
Less Menti Bs. You know, we're just like
that's
all
mental breakdowns is a Menti B for those.
Thank you for translating.
Yeah, I got you.
So we're like reducing some of the level of crisis around mental health has been really valuable.
Yeah.
And has just made such a better experience. Related to all of this is like with our safety team coming, all of a sudden we created a lot more rules and clarity around like where students were supposed to be and when, and where they weren't supposed to be and when. And so like having rules, I mean, I know it sounds like structure. So basic, but just like planning. I mean, CIY has rules and that's great, but it is like a very general framework.
Yeah. No drugs and don't go in the opposite gendered rooms.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's like, okay. But depending
those
on
are great
which
rules.
Campus, they are great rules, but like also,
but also don't go to Waffle House at 3 a.m.
And like if your location is like this with off campus, you know, it's like on campus, off campus, it's all the same. That Waffle House is practically on campus. It's across the street from the campus. You know, some campuses you go to, it's like, this is the campus. And if you leave, it's very obvious.
Right.
And some are like, what? That wasn't on campus? You're kidding, you know? So I think like defining what that was has been really big and helped reduce, you know, the amount of shoplifting, etc. For Trader's Point.
That's amazing.
I just picture shoplifting at Waffle House.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't a Waffle House, you know?
Liable to get shot if you do that. I don't know if
a lot of syrup.
I don't know if I should go into
where all we've shoplifted from, but
let's
a lot fewer conversations about that.
Yeah, so let's not do incriminating things.
That's great.
Yeah.
And then, you know, anticipating needs has also been like bedtime snacks, the extra supplies, like the drinks for leaders has been just like a natural touch point then with your adult leaders during the day.
Yeah. And you're being way less like, I mean, it's stressful to live in a reactive space.
Yes.
24 hours a day for 5 straight days. Or 6
and no matter what
days.
You do, it will be.
Sure. But like the more that you're kind of, the fewer things that you're going to have demanding your attention because you've already thought about them ahead of time and have systems in place to like take care of those, then the more attention you can dedicate to the things that actually need that attention. And you are creating just a better mental space for yourself, you know?
And I love that you mentioned that the rest thing, like getting more sleep, like just by doing these things, that's such a small, you know, result, but such a big deal. Like leaders that have more rest and you give them caffeine in the afternoons, like that alone will do so much for them and their group. But it's like all these small decisions that lead to these results that you might not even think of that create this awesome domino effect.
Well, and if students go to bed, then you really just
Right.
That's all there is to do.
Students going to bed is a big deal. And like, I know that a lot of youth leaders want to stay up late and play cards and build relationships with their students during that time and talk about things during that time. And, you know, I get that, but like, you can also talk about it tomorrow afternoon during free time and everyone can get sleep. And then there's a lot less crying and a lot less anxiety.
And it's like,
you know.
Yeah. And the heightened emotions that happen when you're exhausted, it's like, we like had to be really honest with ourselves. Are we being emotionally manipulative right now? Like,
yeah,
they haven't slept at all. And we're like trying to we're saying we're helping them make these life-changing decisions, but it's like, can you make a life-changing decision when you're that tired?
Yeah.
Should you be, you know? And so it's like, we want their lives to be changed on a summer trip. And like, we want them to be able to comprehend what they're even doing when that happens so that they're not on some just exhausted high.
Yeah.
And it's like, events are mountaintop experiences, but you know, God uses those all throughout scripture. So
right.
I don't think there's anything to apologize with it being that kind of experience, but we don't need to like fuel the exhaustion and like the emotional piece,
right?
You know, by just hanging out
until 3
a.m. Yeah.
Right. I want to
be. And students don't have like their own, the brain development to even like make a good decision about like, I should probably go to bed now for my own,
right.
You know,
they need to
my mental health in 3 days will be better if I go to bed now.
Yeah.
Yep.
One thing I want to talk about before we wrap up here is something that I never did when I was in youth ministry, or not never, but like not to the degree that you guys do it. And I actually think it's so good and has helped you guys scale really well, and especially in these past few years, is you just write everything down. Like, there are policies for everything. Like, you are not putting yourselves in a position where you're having to make like decisions on every single crisis that pops up.
Yeah.
Because, well, you've got this mental health guidebook, but that's just one example. And like your policy of like taking phones away, and like you have all of these things in place, where I feel like a lot of people walk into trips with a pretty like laissez-faire attitude, where it's like, we're going to do this, and they kind of lean into the, okay, no drugs and no people in opposite gender dorms, and like everything else is fair game. But you guys like really, really write everything down and cement it kind of in policy form. What would be your encouragement to people who like maybe have not gotten into that practice?
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to go into a week with unclear expectations and turn that around with any group of people, but a large group of people over the course of 5 days.
Yeah.
So what we've been so intentional about is like, what can we do to make sure everybody's on the same page at the beginning of the trip? And so that's been the whole approach, is just like, what can we do to make sure everybody here knows what to expect?
Sure.
Because when you don't know what to expect, like, that's kind of scary.
Yeah.
For a student, a parent, anybody.
A leader.
Right.
Yeah.
An adult leader.
Yeah.
A staff person. Like, when you walk in and you're just like, it's probably going to be all right, you're not really planning on it being that all right, I don't think. So we've just started writing down, like, we wrote a code of conduct, and it's like, these are the actual rules. And we actually make students sign them like on check-in day as part of, dropping off. It's like, I understand that. Yeah, I'm, committing to this stuff. We have a map in there, and like, in our map, we've got a border, like you can't go, we make a student book and it's like, you cannot go outside of this boundary. We make a schedule for students. Like if you start to create expectations for students to be anywhere that's not already on the CIY schedule, we this past year made our own schedule and like put it in Canva with a QR code so we could just like update it as things change, because stuff does change, but we just had like this live link and then we were able to change the schedule, and it was like, you've got to be where you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be there. And that's like part of that's part of the commitment they signed,
Which, by the way, I'm concerned that people might listen to this and be like, well, they're a church of 500 people. They have the resources to do that. But like what you just said is so easy. And like making a schedule in Canva for, what do you guys like? Do you even pay for Canva? Is it like $20 a month?
It's free it's free for nonprofits.
Free for nonprofits.
You just like, if you take your nonprofits under 50 users, you can take your like nonprofit 501c3 like certification letter and send it to Canva, and they will give you Canva for Teams for up to 50 people for free. So that's what we use.
That, doing that, creating a QR code, having a schedule for your students. You could even like upload a map there that has your like boundary printed out on it. Like these things
last year was from Google Maps. Like it was like Google Maps and markup on my phone,
Yeah.
Like it's not fancy.
Like these things are so practical for so many people. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Students just need to know what to expect. And leaders need to know what to expect. So outlining all those things has just been so helpful. And that I would definitely encourage you, as you think about the trip, just like go through check-in day. Once you get students in your vans or on a bus or on buses, like what are you doing for lunch? And if you are bringing a larger group, it's like, I've talked to other youth pastors and it's like, they pick an exit and it's like, here's a few restaurants at this interstate exit, And if that's your approach, it's like, should you call some of those restaurants ahead of time and give them an ETA? Like, are you bringing enough people that's going to stress out a restaurant? Or like one decision we've made is like to, stop somewhere planned and like cater food.
Yeah.
So, it's like, there's so many ways to do all of that, but it's like, what can you anticipate about every moment?
Yeah.
And I think that's what it comes down to.
Because a lot of people know. It's like, they know because they do it every year. It's like we pull a charter bus into the Chick-fil-A parking lot and it takes forever for everybody to get their food. And it's like, well, that doesn't have to be the way that it is,
Right.
Just like being creative about how do we like address these problems. And like you guys cater food for your group. That's amazing.
No, I'm just curious as you talk about this, like before you guys leave for your trip, what does it look like as far as getting parents and students? You guys have like meetings, is like a camp meeting? Do you have a separate meeting for your safety team? Like how does that all work out to make sure that everyone's prepared before you guys leave?
We've done a lot of things and I don't know that they're all the right things. So, but I can say what we've done and what we've learned.
That's great.
We've done several years of leader trainings where it's all together for mixed leaders and move leaders, all in the same room, kind of. And there is something to like the vision of what happens at trips that's the same, but there's also so much that's different because it's so schedule dependent that, depending on the size of the groups you're bringing to each trip, may or may not recommend it that way. We break up and go through schedules. So this next year, we'll probably do 2 separate nights, do whatever you want with that.
And that's just for leaders, is what you're saying?
That's just for leaders. Right. Yeah. We've done a lot with email communication to parents, just like a really quick video. And then like we attach the code of conduct that students are agreeing to by coming to the camp or by coming to the, on the trip. We, just like the packing list is on our webpage, it's like, we've done everything we can to like get everything on the webpage and then everything in parent communication. We have never done, at least as long as I've been here, we've never done a parent meeting. And I do think there's something to that. If you've ever hosted one and want to reach out, My email is just the email youth@tpcc.org. Would love to find out more about what you do in your parent meetings with everybody, because I'm not sure what that looks like yet, but we've kind of identified that is something that we probably should be doing. Just what does that look like exactly? I don't know.
I mean, that's part of the thing that I love about your disposition, though, is, and I don't mean you as in Tyler Lemmel, even though I do mean you as in Tyler Lemmel. I mean Trader's Point as well, is it's like, we're learning, we're figuring it out. We've had to try stuff. We've had to fail at stuff. And we're still figuring out. We still we're going to bring more people next year than we brought this year. And that presents new challenges that we are all learning about together and trying to figure out together. Yeah.
I mean, that's just the reality of something like this. It's like, you've got one group of students that you're doing this one thing with one time, and you're going to do it, and things are going to come up. And it's like, there might be things that come up in 2025 that never happen again.
There might be,
but
there will be.
Yeah.
But also there might be things that come up in 2025 that you're going to see again the next year and the year after that. And some of that might just come with growth, and some of it's cultural changes. But I would say as things grow, if your weeks are growing, I would just anticipate that there's going to be more and more students who are joining you who aren't on mission with you. And so that brings new dynamics,
right,
of how parents do or don't trust you, how they do or don't trust you, and how they interact with you, and the things that some students are experiencing at home. It's what they're being thrust into is so different that you've got to, there's a lot of gray area trying to figure out why is a student responding to something this way? Are they wandering off because they're just truly, they're so used to being on their own that this is disorienting. So there's just some of that there's a lot of gray area in it, but it's what can you do to anticipate what's going to happen? And then every year it's just learning from it. Everything we've done is because we've learned something specifically, something specifically going wrong, or talking to other churches and finding things that they're doing really, really well, and then adapting them.
Yeah.
So everything I've said, it's we've learned so much from so many other churches. And so I don't say any of this we've got it figured out. There is still so much more for us to learn. And there's so many churches that are doing really, really great things with their weeks of CIY. And so learning from other churches about what they're doing, it's just been so cool. And it's so fun to see, the kingdom of God and what's happening all across the country with all of this, and kind of contextualizing that for me, for Trader's Point, what's happening here and how we can use those ideas to make it better so that it's a better experience for everybody.
Yeah. Well, you've given us a lot to chew on. Appreciate you taking the time, Tyler. We got to wrap things up here, but I just really love you, my friend. And
love you too, Brad.
Love your heart towards this thing that not a lot of people who are predisposed to youth ministry like to spend a ton of time thinking about the logistics, the ins and outs, but you've given us a good jumping off point to kind of think through those things. So thanks for your time, Tyler.
Thanks for hanging out.
Thanks for what you do, man.
Bye. Mikey, I'll tell you what I loved about that conversation.
Please tell me.
That it was with you and Tyler, and we've been friends for so long.
Oh man,
I know. But also it was just good stuff,
It really was.
I hope that youth pastors will have a chance to just kind of sit on that, because here's the thing. Everything that Tyler said, you come from a big church, this, you have to take it and contextualize it in some really interesting ways.
Mm-hmm.
But the philosophy behind what he said is all really good,
Yeah, absolutely. The scalability of it is there for sure.
It's we were talking about, some of that you can do if you're bringing a group of 40,
Mm-hmm.
And then it obviously scales up all the way until you're bringing a group of 500 or whatever it is that Traders Point brings. But what was one, let's do this really quick. I'm going to put you on the spot.
Please do. I'm
from
ready.
your youth ministry days.
Yeah.
One trip hack from Mikey Sackrider was one thing that you guys did that was like, this was incredible. This was unbelievable.
I don't know if this is really a hack. I feel like this one's kind of obvious. We talked about it a little bit. I mean, we just absolutely took care of our leaders. Like, we really made that a huge part of our day.
Yeah.
Made sure that they knew what they were doing. We would do, because we go to Lee University every year. Shout out to Lee.
Lovely.
And they have a Dunkin' Donuts on campus. Mm-hmm. So there were, not every morning, but there were a couple mornings where we felt like our leaders really needed it. We just say, hey, go to Dunkin' and we're going to buy you a coffee, because we just are so glad that you're here and we're thankful for what you do. And we want to make sure you have caffeine. And that's just like one way of many that we just wanted to make sure that they felt like they were championed, that we believed in them, and that we were so thankful for them giving up their week to be there. So, and it made all the difference. I mean, they were excited. They looked forward to going back the next year, and it translated into our Sunday night programming too, just having them. And so I don't know if that's as much a hack as it is just like a cultural thing, like for your church, like your culture and how you treat your leaders and stuff. But
no, totally.
Awesome.
I think that culture is important to instill, and even worth, I personally am of the opinion that like it's worth it to invest financially in that as much as you can.
Right.
Even if you have to sacrifice in other areas in order to make that happen. Like, that culture of taking care of the people who are taking care of your students is a really big deal.
Right.
Youth pastors know that. They're the best. We love you guys. Because we love you, I'm going to have Mikey go ahead and close us out by reading our blessing for you.
Yep. May God show you grace and bless you. May he make his face shine on you. May you experience the love of Christ, through whom God gives you fullness of life. May you be strengthened by his power. May Christ himself make his home in your heart, that you would be full of his love and grace, and that those you serve would see Jesus in you.
Today's episode was produced by Michael Hester, Lauren Bryan, and me. If you liked what you heard, be sure to subscribe to our show on the YouTubes or wherever you listen to podcasts. We will be back in a couple weeks to continue this series about scaling for growth. We're going to talk about everybody's favorite thing, your budget. And it's going to be so fun. If you don't want to miss that, make sure you subscribe. In the meantime, you can reach out to us on the CIY Community Facebook group or by email at podcast@ciy.com. We will see you next time.